Imagine being a massive Marvel fan who is living the dream. You're at the Avengers Endgame red carpet premiere. You step into the restroom and one of the stars walks in behind you. It's your big moment. What do you do? Believe me, you're going to want to stay to the end of this interview with Josh Saleh, the host of Marvel Let's Play. This is Tatooine Sons.
It's true. All of it.
What is the name of the porg on the Millennium Falcon?
Force is strong in my family.
What do you think his name is? It's a big moment.
I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Maybe Turbis?
Do or do not. There is no try.
Turbis? Pablo, if you're listening to this live stream, that porg's name is now Turbis. It's a good Star Wars name.
We're not done yet.
These guys recorded an awesome podcast called Tatooine Sons. Everybody listen to that.
Welcome to Tatooine Sons, the only fan podcast to name an official Star Wars creature and be endorsed by the writer-director of The Last Jedi, Rian Johnson. We believe that pop culture is the mythology of this generation, that there is a story, it is written on our souls, and these myths speak to that story. And that is why I am honored to be joined this week by Josh Saleh. Josh is a professional host, actor, gamer, and dog dad. I should probably have asked him about Lucky the Pizza Dog. As a host, Josh has worked with Marvel Entertainment, Disney, Amazon, Microsoft, UMG, Adorama, and more. Josh hosts Marvel Let's Play, where he interviews, plays with, and showcases Marvel talent, game developers, and fans. His Marvel hosting background also includes movie premieres, Marvel gaming tournaments, and numerous Comic-Con panels, as well as Marvel Minute. When he's not nerding out at Marvel, you can catch him on Amazon as their tech and gaming host, hosting a weekly video game news show with Adorama and hosting on the Citizen app. As an actor, Josh has performed in films, independent feature films, short films, commercials, web series, all of that. And what all this means to you is this. Josh is a nerd like you and me, and he's been reading comic books since he was a kid. He loves Marvel and Star Wars and everything we love. And now, like I said in the intro, he's living his dream. He's working with Marvel. I asked Josh why Marvel is such a phenomenon.
Oh man, what a question. Well, let's talk about phenomenons, right? Things that are unforgettable, things that have an impact on people's lives. And for my personal sake, Marvel has had an impact not only on my own fandom and love, but on the entire world. As you see multiple people coming together, going to movies, reading comics, going to Disneyland, going on these awesome rides, having these experiences and sharing them across different platforms. What's awesome to me is comics connect so many different people. It's a different form of reading, right? You have now it's with pictures. And for so long, comics were seen as something that were nerdy, and they still are in a positive way, but they were seen as like, oh, you're reading comics. Oh man, you nerd. Like that was me growing up. And now if you read comics, it's this amazing, like, oh, you're cool now. Yeah. Like we want to be your friend.
Yeah. 15 years ago, there was a whole TV show built around how badly nerdy those people were in The Big Bang Theory. And now it's the cool thing.
Yeah. And you know, there's so much that has transpired to create a positive and I guess great culture of it. But for me, comics have always been that escape from reality mode of, oh, is this possible? I wish I had superpowers. Oh, I wish I could do this. And that's how I connected with my friends. And now you have a whole different generation with the movies. You know, Marvel Studios creating all this amazing content that people are, where were you when Endgame happened? Where were you when Captain America picked up Mjolnir? These moments that are never going to be forgotten. And then now you have that with the rides. When did you go on Rise of Resistance? What was your interaction like? What storyline did you get? And you have so many moments in comics, in video games, in movies and rides that will transcend time, in my opinion, that will never be forgotten.
What's your first comic book memory? Like the one that, like, when you go back, you're like, that's when I fell in love with comics.
Oh, man, that's a great question. So my mom had to pick me up from school all the time as a kid, and she was late a lot because she had to work. Right. And I would go to the library for lunch and for after school. And the library's an amazing place because you can get everything for free. And so I would sit, at a table and just read comics nonstop. That's what I would do. So my first comic interaction was Spider-Man. He is my favorite hero. He will always be my favorite hero. And I connected with Spider-Man so much because he lost his uncle. And he lost his grandfather. Look, I'm forgetting. Or Uncle Ben. I'm sorry. He lost his Uncle Ben.
Yeah, right.
And I lost at that time my grandfather and my father. And so when I was 7, I lost my father. And when I was 17, I lost my grandfather, 2 huge, impactful father figures in my life. And I related to Peter Parker so much because he was going through a moment in his time where he was looking for his identity, looking for who he was as a person and what he meant in life. And I was also looking for that. I was also wondering who I was. And he had an extra layer of superpowers that he had to deal with. And that relatability was so strong. And then you could find that in so many different Marvel characters. Like at the time, Tony Stark wasn't as popular as he was now. And
right.
A lot of people that connected Tony Stark, he, when he was in the early days, he had a big alcohol problem and he had to deal with that and learning how to cope with that. And I know a lot of friends and family members that they love Tony Stark for those relatability features as well. And you have these characters that have these human qualities that people can connect to and see how they grow out of these arcs, how they learn from these experiences. And I think that's what brings Marvel so human, that it's so incredibly relatable.
That's awesome. Now, if we're talking about Spider-Man, I'm going to ask a question. I'm not going to put you in a bad position. I'm just going to I'm going to ask you, of the 3 live action film Spider-Men, Tobey, Andrew, Tom, they're all awesome. We're not putting you in a position to say you don't like one. Okay. What we're saying is, which one is your favorite and why?
All right, so going to preface, none of this is, I'm not speaking as a Marvel employee.
Right,
I'm not speaking as I'm speaking as a fan. Okay, so I grew up with Tobey Maguire Spider-Mans. Incredible. Loved them. Andrew Garfield's were right after. Great movies. For me, I would say Tom Holland. I think Tom Holland embodies Peter and Spider-Man in a way that hasn't been done in a non-animated sense. Because Spider-Man animated series are some of my favorite Spider-Man, shows of all time. But I think Tom Holland does a great job of doing both. However, I will say this caveat: Spider-Man 1 and 2 with Tobey Maguire has some of the most iconic and memorable movie moments in a superhero movie.
That's awesome.
What about you?
Oh, wow. So we are watching through them right now, and we just finished Amazing Spider-Man 2. And I will tell you that I like Andrew Garfield just because I think it's just such a different take on it. And it's fun because there's memories built around those movies. That's when my youngest son started falling in love with Spider-Man. And he's a huge Spider-Man fan now. Yeah. And so watching those movies originally in the theaters, he was pretty little when those came out. Those memories are really important. I like Tom Holland as Peter Parker. I think he's a fantastic Peter Parker. I think he feels more real as far as a high school student and the issues that version of Spider-Man, of Peter Parker, went through from the comic books. And I did read. I was reading Spider-Man comic books back when like the symbiote suit started and that kind of stuff. There's some of that from the older Spider-Man too that I kind of like. But I'm excited about. I like all 3 of them. But the campiness of the Tobey Spider-Man is there's a special place in my life, and there's a story there I'll probably tell on the episode at the end about Sam, my oldest, when we saw Venom 3, and we had to leave the theater because he was so scared out of his mind. But anyway,
wait. Did you see Infinity War with your kids?
I did, yeah.
When Spider-Man got snapped away, what was their reactions?
Just devastation, honestly. Yeah, devastating. Like you kind of so we were familiar enough with Infinity War, right? The comic book arc that we kind of knew, the movie's got to end with like a lot of death and disappearance, devastation, and all that kind of stuff. So we weren't surprised by some of that. But then, man, the I don't feel so good. That part. That was devastating. They were pretty upset.
Well, I saw it in the theaters multiple times. How could I not? And one of the times I saw it, there was this, I think he was like 6 or 7 year old kid behind me, and he's like, "Mommy, no!" He started crying, and then I started crying, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is so sad."
Yeah, I saw somebody on social media recently talk about how Tom Holland's Peter Parker hasn't suffered enough, and so
interesting.
I'm like, really? Seriously, are you not watching the same movies that I'm watching? Just because you didn't see the Uncle Ben moment doesn't mean he hasn't suffered. Okay. So,
how old is that person? What have they gone through in their lives?
Yeah, exactly. So let's talk a little bit about like the start of the MCU. Before the release of Iron Man in 2008, Marvel had some mixed success in films and TV. You've got a lot, you have conversations like as part of your life, which is really cool, as your job about Marvel and the Marvel films and everything else. You interact with people in it. Why do you think that MCU is different from, we talked about like the Andrew Garfield and the Tobey and some of the non-MCU Marvel movies, and why the MCU has grabbed the attention of the world so much differently?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would honestly say the team behind it, the entire executive production staff, they, being able to interview them, they are huge fans of the genre, of the medium. And they have worked with Marvel for so many years. Look at Kevin Feige, right. He's been with Marvel for so long. And not to say he is the one person that is in charge of all of this. It's a team effort, and it's a group effort. And them being able to have this open dialogue of what do we want to do? Let's talk about it. Let's figure out how we want to do X, Y, Z. And just their joy of putting out these movies. I mean, could you imagine 10, 15, even 20 years ago, a Shang-Chi movie? I never would have even thought of that. A Black Widow solo movie, a Black Panther movie. I think it just goes to show that they're willing to take big risks. And I mean, I personally don't think they're risks. I know they're amazing movies, and I think there's going to be tons and thousands of people that want to see these. But in Hollywood's scheme of movies, that is a risk for them. Mm-hmm. That is will people want to see this? Will people go out and see this? And I think it's so great that let's give the fans what they want. Let's give what we want, us as fans, what we want to see. I mean, Captain America, and I brought this up before, picking up Mjolnir. Would we ever see that? Right. Like Thanos snapping half of the world away in the movies. Would we ever see that? And I think it's just so incredible, and it shows the power and the insightfulness and the planning that they have to formulate this, I don't know, but perfect equation that even if there's a movie that, let's say, a fan doesn't enjoy, I think there's a way that they can still respect it and be like, cool, I know what they were trying to do. I know that there is somebody that maybe not me. Maybe this movie wasn't geared toward me. It might be geared towards somebody else. And you have, I think it's like 25 movies now that just came out. I think No Way Home is 26. Yeah. And it's like 25. Like, what? Like, that's insane. Like, can you think of any movie any series that has done 25 movies where they've all been, like, at least in my opinion, incredibly done? Right. I can't think of that.
And not just that, but in such a compacted period of time.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about movies like the Bond movies and stuff, but that's a very different kind of conversation with Bond. These are one story that's being told in, a 12, 13 year period at this point, which is pretty cool. Over the last, today, as we're recording this, is the day that Hawkeye is premiering on Disney Plus. And that kind of leads me to the next question, because the biggest news in Marvel over the last 12 months really hasn't been on the silver screen. It's been on the TV screen. With the, introduction of these Disney Plus series. You got WandaVision and Loki and everything else. They've become these massive phenomenons as well. We use that word a lot on this show, I guess. What's the biggest reason that you think that WandaVision and Loki and Captain America or Falcon and the Winter Soldier and all those have been successful in the MCU because they are different.
Yeah, it's a good question. I want to also say that Marvel has always been in television. That's true. Since I was growing up, I think even since the 80s, if not earlier. Yeah. I mean, Luke Ferrigno's Hulk.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So it's funny to me where people's like, oh, some people fans have come up. Marvel's finally in TV. How does that make you feel? It's like, wait a second, what? We've always had Marvel's always been in TV. Like, look at
it's different too. Just like the movies were different. It's still part of this one connected story, and the level of these productions is. I mean, let's be honest. Mark Ruffalo's Hulk is a little different than the one from the Incredible Hulk TV series.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right on that. Yeah, and there's been a lot of animated shows and stuff growing up. I would watch, X-Men, the animated series is coming back. What?
I know.
Oh my goodness, I can't wait. But to answer your question, what makes these, I guess, different in a sense? I think that the MCU brought so many new Marvel fans in that might have not read the comics or might have not played the video games or might have not watched the previous shows. And they came in from a different medium, which is movies. And they want to see the story continue. They want to see what transpires. And they see their favorite characters like Wanda, Vision, Falcon, Winter Soldier, just to name a few. They see these amazing characters that they got maybe like a snippet of in the movies. And they want to see more of in depth of character development. And that's where they would go for these. That's where you'd see, okay, what is Wanda up to now? What's going to happen? And the best way I can describe these for those who haven't seen them yet, I don't know if you're a comic book reader, so you would know these. I imagine the entirety of MCU, like Avenger movies and those big iconic Infinity War, as events, like comic events.
Right.
Like all the characters come together. And then you have these solo shots, these solo one-shot comics that follow the character and you get more of an inkling on them and what they're doing. So that basically is Wanda and Vision is like their solo comic run of get to know them outside of the greater scheme of the story. But it still is going to help you understand the MCU as a greater whole. It's still going to help you because no spoilers here, but at the end of WandaVision, you see where she's at. Right. And I can only imagine they have a plan of who that is now in the greater scheme. But again, I don't know. So I would say that's why people want to understand the characters and get to know them better.
Josh makes a really great point here. The Marvel series on Disney Plus have really helped us understand these characters more deeply. Of course, we grieved with Wanda, and then we felt Sam's insecurities and Bucky's guilt. We watched Loki fall in love with himself. And now in Hawkeye, we're really feeling the burden that Clint feels with his past as Ronin and his future now that he's been reunited with his family. My interview with Josh will continue in just a moment, but I want to take just a minute to thank our sponsor, Cufflinks.com. Josh will almost certainly be attending the red carpet premiere of Spider-Man No Way Home in just a few weeks. The good news is that Josh can find some really cool Spider-Man cufflinks, ties, tie bar, socks, pocket squares, and more on Cufflinks.com. And that means he gets to go to the premiere as a sharp-dressed fan. If you're not familiar with Cufflinks.com, all you need to know is that they have over 3,000 items for fans like you, including cufflinks, ties, tie bars, socks from all of the fandoms you love: Star Wars, Star Trek, Marvel, DC, Lord of the Rings, and more. We love Cufflinks.com because they're family owned. They're run by a couple of brothers who geek out about Star Wars as much as we do. So if you want to help the show out and you want to look great doing it, head over to Cufflinks.com. Take a look at everything that it has to offer and get your Christmas list together. Be sure to tell your family when they purchase these gifts for you, or when you purchase gifts for someone else, to use the code Tatooine15 at checkout. You're going to receive 15% off of your entire order. And seriously, Josh needs to pick up the gorgeous gold Spider-Man cufflinks on the site. They're absolutely beautiful. All right, as we continue my interview with Josh, I asked him to look forward into 2022 and beyond and talk about how Marvel is constantly pushing the envelope. Here's what he had to say.
Yeah, that's a great question. what's been hard for me personally is, and I'm sure a lot of people, COVID has changed a lot of things.
Yeah.
Comic-Con has not happened for the past 2 years, which was one of my favorite, still is one of my favorite places to be with fans. We would do so many stage events, interviewing talents, celebrities, video game voiceover actors, you name it, developers, comic book writers, and that's where fans get to be face to face with them and get their, comic signed or ask them questions. And it's been really hard for me personally the past 2 years because there hasn't really been a Comic-Con. So I'm hoping, and again, anything could change, that next year Comic-Con possibly comes back. I don't have any official knowledge of that. But if Comic-Con does come back in a safe environment that people feel comfortable in, I think that's going to be incredible because you have all this built up energy from fans that just want to go out, show their cosplay, go out and just talk and hang out with people that have the same love and compassion that they do. So that I think would be really cool if that were to happen. And I think the next thing would be just, there's so much digital content out there. I'm thankful because I get to host the Marvel Let's Plays, where anytime a Marvel video game comes out, we showcase that. We interview game developers. Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy just came out, which is an incredible game. Check it out. There's some awesome games that are coming up next year.
Nate, my youngest, he's all into that game. He loves
it's so good. The storytelling is so good. And, Marvel Spider-Man 2 comes out in 2023, I believe. Marvel's Wolverine. Like, who would have thought? And that's all coming up in the next 2 to 3. I mean, who knows? Marvel's Wolverine doesn't have a release date, but Marvel Spider-Man comes out in 2 years. So there's tons of games. Marvel's Midnight Suns comes out. So there's tons of games coming out. Comics are always coming out on Wednesdays, which is today. So it's new comic book day today, which is awesome when we're recording this. And, more Disney Plus shows. They just announced Echo is coming out. There's so many great shows and movies that are giving voices to characters that not a lot of people know about and giving those characters like a platform, if you will. And I think it brings not only more fans to the Marvel, media, but it also gives a voice to those who might not have a louder voice as other characters and other heroes, which I think is really important. Yeah,
that's interesting. Yeah, we are getting these new series and for the first time, like with Echo, you bring that up. It seems like with the other Disney Plus series, they're all characters we have at least some connection with up to this point. And now with Echo and with Moon Knight and some of these others, that next wave that they were, we got on the Disney Plus Day a couple of weeks ago and everything else. It's like they're new characters and they're not like part of, the Avengers storyline that we've been a part of. So that's going to be pretty exciting. Tell, which one of the new things are you kind of the most intrigued by going into it?
Moon Knight. I cannot wait for Moon Knight. I read a lot of Moon Knight comics in like high school-ish, and I was just so fascinated with that character and the schizophrenia and like the character forgetting and like thinking that they maybe gods are among us. And Oscar Isaac is an incredible actor, and I cannot wait to see what he does with that. And I mean, just from the teaser that we saw on Disney Plus was awesome. And I'm curious where they go with it, because when I think of Moon Knight, I think of like very gory and very dark.
Right.
And I'm curious if that's where they go.
Because it's on Disney Plus, right? Yeah. And so they've got parameters there. Let's just be honest.
Time will tell. We'll see what happens.
That's awesome. This the innovative Marvel approach towards storytelling, it can come with risk by doing these things. How is Marvel balancing making, guys like you, longtime Marvel lovers, comic books and the old school stuff as well, happy while bringing in these new fans?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I can't speak for those who are making those decisions.
No, I understand, but your perspective, your opinion, right?
Yeah. I would say, that's a good question. For me, they balance it for me because I want to hear those new characters, I guess. I would love to see a show with Echo. I would love to see a show with Moon Knight, because Marvel's in my DNA since I grew up, since reading the comics. So I know all these characters, not a lot of Echo. I need to read more comics on Echo, but I grew up with a lot of these characters. So seeing that they're getting a Disney Plus show or they're going to be in a movie makes me so incredibly excited. And I think that excitement reverberates to new fans that don't know these characters very well. And I think you can see that in, forums online and on social media when Disney Plus Day happened and everyone's like, oh my goodness, did you see the She-Hulk thing? Did you see Moon Knight, the teaser for this? You see people on social media go, oh, I don't know who that character is. Let me go and learn about this. And then you see tons of, journalism going, 10 facts you know about Moon Knight, right? 10 facts you know about She-Hulk. And then that's where that starts. And it starts like bringing in a conversational starter. And I don't think there needs to be a risk to mitigate if you're constantly having these fans that are just excited. And I think that for me personally, MCU has yet to like do a misstep. I think that like the things that they've come out with has been incredible and tremendous. And it has me trust the next thing they're going to come out with. Like, hey, I would love to see an Echo TV show because who knows what that's going to be because I don't know the character, but I trust in Marvel Studios to know they're going to make it great.
That's awesome. So you started working with Marvel like as a career 4 years ago. There's been probably more pinch yourself moments in the last 4 years than can be imagined for you. Yes. What's we'll close with this one. What's the biggest pinch yourself moment that you've had since then?
Oh man, that's a good question. Being invited to the movie premieres have been something I never even thought of. Being able to be right there alongside. I don't get very starstruck because I was an actor for so long. I definitely respect them and love what they do, but I'm not like, oh my goodness,
you've been behind the scenes enough to not get
yeah. Because I know we're all at the end of the day we're all working, right? We're all there to like showcase this awesome talent and movie. So the biggest pinch myself moment, I guess, was at the Marvel Studios Endgame premiere in LA. Okay. And I went to use the bathroom and I'm right there. And Chris Pratt walks in and he starts using the urinal next to me and he starts singing. He's like,
I just want to stop here and say how awesome it is that this episode has a Chris Pratt in the urinal moment in it. This is going in like our highlight reel at the end of the year. So
oh man, I better not embarrass myself too much then. So he starts, using the urinal like 2 down from me, and I remember it exactly 2 down from me, and he starts singing, just randomly in the bathroom. I was born by the river, and I was like, okay, I have 2 options right here. I can either just keep doing what I'm doing, ignore him, or I can sing with him. Just like, let's sing with him. What have we got to do? Ever. And I started going, change will come. we pause, we look at each other as we're both still urinating. We make eye contact, and he's like, I was like, hey. He's like, hey. He's like, cool. And he finishes, I finish, and he comes back. He's like, thanks so much for singing with me. He's like, yeah, no problem, man. Enjoy your movie. He's like, thanks, dude. So I guess that would be the most pinch yourself moment because it was just so random and ridiculous.
Just be careful what you pinch in that moment. And on that, thank you so much, Josh. It's been awesome having you on here. This might be the most hilarious moment that this podcast has ever had on it. It was absolutely great. But I really do love the lesson that is buried in that story he told. Josh had 2 different choices that he could make. He could ignore Chris and pretend that he wasn't singing there next to him, or he could seize the moment and create a memory that's he's going to carry with him for the rest of his life. And it really does remind me of that moment that BB Nate worked up the courage to ask Rian Johnson about the Porg on the Millennium Falcon. If he hadn't done that, our world and even Star Wars canon would be very different. Thank you so much for listening to Tatooine Sons, a pop culture podcast. If you enjoyed this interview with Josh, please take a moment to rate and review the show on your podcast app of choice. Make sure you hit that follow or subscribe button on your app so you get every episode the moment that it drops. Our next episode releases on Tuesday. We are going to be reacting to the 3rd episode of Hawkeye, and we'll experience a little deja vu with the new trailer to Matrix Revolutions. Excuse me, did I say Revolutions? Resurrections, excuse me. And then what we're going to do is we're going to have a slightly tongue-in-cheek conversation about the real Star Wars musical This isn't a joke. It's returning to Off-Broadway this month. I can't wait to talk about it. Make sure you follow Tatooine Sons on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and all the socials. Share this episode with somebody else. That is how you help the show grow. Thank you so much for doing that. Give us a rating and a review on your podcast app, Apple or podchaser.com/Tatooine Sons. And that's going to pretty much do it for today. There's only one thing left to say.
May the Force be with you, always.
This party's over.
I like that Wookiee.
Don't get technical with me.